Morning. Welcome to Monday. Kathy, I'll just turn it over to you for budget reviews. Go ahead.
Okay, we have 3 budget reviews. We have drug court, and we'll do them first.
Okay.
And Susie will walk us through the financials.
Okay.
Good morning, Susie, Finance Manager. So drug court, they are part of the general fund, so budgeted revenues will not equal budgeted expenses. They have currently a $60,000 budget for intergovernmental revenue. They've brought in just over 28,000, so they're just slightly under target. But that's basically state grant revenue. So it's behavioral health and recovery funding that's provided by Washington State Healthcare Authority. Goods and services has a budget of 20,000 and they've brought in just over 11,000. So they are slightly exceeding target for the year. And those are going to be supervision fees that they charge to participants of the program. Other financing sources has a budget of 629,000 and they've brought in 236,000 for the year. So those are going to be the mental health tax billings that they request reimbursement for from our office. They've currently submitted through June. Personnel, so they have currently 5.5 FTE filled and they have 1 open position. They have a budget for personnel of 662,000. So far, they've expended 279,000. So they are slightly under compared to where we would expect them to be at this point in the year. But these figures only include payroll for the first half of July. So the first half of July payroll was roughly 59,000. And the vacancy accounts for, or sorry, the vacancy makes up 59,000. The first half payroll of July was 18,000. So if the second half is similar to the first half of July, factoring in the vacancy, they would be right on target for the year. Supplies has a budget of just shy of 27,000 and so far has expended just over 21,000. So at the beginning of every year, they do have to renew 2 software agreements, which total 20,000. So that's why they look like they've almost eaten up all of their supplies budget. Services.
When you say renew software agreement, is that like the billing from IT or is it, this is different? This is software they have. Okay.
Mhm.
It's a licensing agreement that we're in.
So I believe it's, is it Ream? Was that what you called?
There's the rant and the DCCM.
One more time. I'm fighting with allergies, so my ears are half plugged.
So the 2 that we're talking about is the DCCM and the rant. So the rant is how we evaluate people that get into therapeutic courts, and the DCCM is how we track and process, and that information goes to the state.
And that's a computer program we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, but those upgrades are a licensing agreement or just in order to use the software?
It's a licensing agreement.
Okay.
So services has a budget of just over 169,000 and so far has utilized 117,000. So currently it looks like they are exceeding budget. That's largely due to internal service billings that were paid in January that totaled 89,000.
But based on current spending, you should hit where you need to be as far as services go at the end of the year.
So that's all I have for drug court. Do you have any questions for the department or anything like that?
I do, just so I understand, and I don't care one way or the other, the DCCM and the rant, is that something we maintain? Or, okay, we just pay a fee to access it. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, if it had been this is Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director, if it had been software that all of the county uses or utilize, that would probably be included in IT's budget, but because it's unique to their program, it's included as an expense on their account.
Okay, yeah.
So the next department that we have is going to be Parks and Rec. So they are also a general fund, so their budgeted revenues will not equal their budgeted expenses. So fines and penalties, they don't currently have a budget, but they have brought in $10 for the year. Miscellaneous revenue, they have a budget of 44,000 and so far have brought in 30,000. So that's going to be made up of camping fees, reservations for the gazebos, picnic tables, campsites. Other financing sources has a budget of just shy of 30,000 and so far there's no activity there. Those are going to be transfers in of ARPA dollars, which will be done later this year. Next slide, please. Personnel has a budget of 246,000 and so far has spent 118,000. So the second half of payroll is not reflected in the numbers, but I looked at it this morning. Factoring in the second half payroll, their year-to-date actuals are closer to 129,000. So when you compare that to the target, it looks like they're slightly over budget, but they currently have 3 summer help that are being utilized that will be ending within the next couple months. So we should see payroll costs dip a little bit. So I'm anticipating they'll still be within budget by the end of the year.
So there's 3 people that are on summer help, and are they on for 3 months? I was gonna say, for 2 FTEs at $246,000, that's a pretty hefty payroll for 2 people.
I believe the budget for the summer help for 3 of them was just over 30,000. Supplies has a budget of 34,000 and has brought in or expended 13,000. So they are currently under budget, but they are expecting to see an increase in supplies as fall rolls around for leaf season. Services has a budget of 293,000 and so far has spent 166,000. So it appears they're slightly over target, but that's largely due to 42,000 of internal service billings that were paid in January. So that's everything I have for Parks and Rec, and they're here if you want to ask any operational questions or anything like that.
How are we doing with the bathrooms at, was it West Side?
Riverside.
Riverside Park?
Riverside.
We still have issues out there?
Good morning. So for Riverside, we did have a decrease in vandalism, if that's what we're asking about.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and that's one of those things that fluctuates just depending on what's happening. I never know for sure what's gonna happen the next couple months. We could be back where we were 2 years ago.
There were things that we did to try to mitigate some of that, didn't we?
There's not really a lot that I can do to mitigate that. It's more of some people got in trouble. That might have solved our issue. But and it's never, we have different kids or adults that come in the park. Sometimes it's a one-time thing. Sometimes it's repeat offenders.
Cool. Well, you're doing a good job. We've heard a lot of positive feedback about the park out there.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
So next up is noxious weed. So they currently have a budget of 45,000 for intergovernmental revenue. So far, they haven't brought any in. That's going to be largely grant revenue, and they typically do that billing in fourth quarter after their summer increase in activity. So the budget was prepared based on approved funding that they had at the time. So they do have a more updated figure. They are expecting to bring in over 60,000 in revenue. So as those billings occur, we'll be looking at that for probably a fourth quarter budget amendment, but they are anticipating that they'll exceed that budget. Miscellaneous revenue has a budget of 487,000, and so far they've brought in 304,000. 300 of that is property tax assessments. So we will see a larger increase in that revenue line closer to October. Personnel has a budget.
Real quick, Susie. Jennifer, when did the rate change take effect? Is this the first year that you're seeing that or okay?
So our rate change took effect, I believe, 2023.
Okay,
Is when we
so
increased the
you're in the
rate.
second year of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
third year.
Okay,
So
thanks.
it went up a couple years ago. There was a year where the public lands didn't get included that should have been, and those are now included. So this is kind of where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
And you're not planning on increasing rates next year, correct?
Correct.
So personnel has a budget of 437,000 and so far has spent just over 201,000. Factoring in the second half payroll, their year-to-date actuals are closer to 214,000, which is still slightly below the target for the year. Supplies has a budget of 34,000 and has spent just over 11,000. So they are slightly below target on that one as well. Services has a budget of 156,000 and has spent just shy of 113,000. 62,000 is related to internal service billings that were paid in January. Capital has a budget of 15,000 and so far they haven't spent anything. There is currently an outstanding PO for about 12,000 related to a Connex that they're waiting to be manufactured and delivered. So we do anticipate that budget line being utilized later this year.
It's due to a what?
A Connex for storage.
Oh.
And that's all I have.
Well, while you got you here, these nice flat round flowers that are lining the highways and the West Side Highway, my God, it looks like somebody spent their life planting
Mhm.
that stuff. I understand that's a noxious weed.
It is. It's wild carrot, or also known as Queen Anne's lace. The timing of treatments that the roadsides do between county or state, just time just right to allow that one to flourish while everything else goes away. So we're trying to figure that one out.
Okay.
But it's a carrot. You could maybe eat it. Look for a market. I don't know.
I understand that the roots are edible.
On that one, they are.
Yeah. Okay.
Kelly, did you have the additional spreadsheet that I sent along? So I just wanted to share a little bit of additional information from what our weed board reviews on a monthly basis. So when that comes up. All right, so with the weed board, we have monthly meetings that our board reviews our financials. And this is the summary page that we're looking at. I did update this from January to June, so this is looking at the first half of 2025. The biggest thing that I wanted to talk about was the graph in the bottom left corner. This is our cash flow chart that we monitor. And each line represents a different month over the last 2 years. And it's representative of the pattern of income and expenditures that we have in our program. So we typically look at where were we at this point last year and where were we at this point 2 years ago. So at this point this year, we're actually a little bit above where we were 2 years ago. And that's a sign that our funds are slowly increasing. However, I am expecting that to kind of even out over the next year, just due to the rise of all of our expenses. So we kind of watch that pretty closely. In the bottom right corner, we have our budget expended versus what's left. So we have expended just about 46% of our budget through the end of June. And the second pie graph next to it shows that the majority of that is labor. And then about a quarter of our expenditures are interfund services. And then an even smaller amount are supplies and other services. So these are just things that we're monitoring regularly to make sure we're staying within our budget. I will also mention the tiny pie graph in the middle left is showing our assessment balance. So that's the special assessment on properties in Cowlitz County. And we have received just over half of that through the middle of the year. And again, the rest of that we're anticipating in October.
Jennifer, do you utilize summer help or do you like contract with other groups
We hire through Employers Overload for our summer help.
for some help, summer help?
So we have 2 technicians hired through that program this year. We used to hire anywhere from 3 to 4 technicians. However, we made a change this year to our full-time staff. So we have a 9-month position who is leading that team rather than having that person on for only 5 months.
Okay.
And that's going really well. I feel like that person is taking a lot more ownership over being a lead than our 5-month seasonals would.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, nothing else for budget. We did have a gentleman in, I saw he left, so I use this moment. I don't know if you going through my emails today, and then we have to have WASAC, we have association has a member on the DNR board. For a long time, it's been Lisa Janicki from Snohomish County, and she's resigned, and so WASAC put out a notice, people that were interested put their name in, and then they did interviews, and they're suggesting this Randy Johnson from Callum. I don't know him extremely well. I think he's more conservative than Lisa, definitely. So I don't have any heartburn with it, but I want to make sure we're all okay before I send this in.
Yeah.
Okay. Who do we all have here? We have Jennifer. We have corrections. We have. We can get through some of these if you want to start. Okay. Jennifer, why don't you- I see you have, and I guess we just got a new. So that's old. Okay.
Good morning again. So today on our agenda, we have a modification to an existing contract with Ecology for a Washington Conservation Corps crew. There was a shift in their funding sources for the year, so they let all of their project partners know that they had additional weeks of work available. So our weed board opted to add an additional week of services onto our current contract. And we will be utilizing the WCC crew to help with treatments of knotweed on Clark Creek during the week that they're here. So the weed board will be paying for that one. Unlike the previous funding in that, this won't be reimbursed by a grant. Part of it may be with our knotweed grant, but I'd like to use that funding otherwise. So our weed board does have the money to cover that, but we wanted to see if we could get additional work done. Any questions?
How do you determine where you're gonna spend that week?
We have other funding from Knotweed that requires us to work with the top-down approach. If we have areas that we don't have top-down permission, then we look at those areas of interest where we have a lot of landowner participation and agency participation and try to make the most of what we have. All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Corrections. I think I saw Marin back there, yeah.
Good morning, Marin Fox, Director of Corrections. We have 2 items on the agenda, well, 3 technically. We have a new contract with Trinity, that's our food service provider. They provide meals for the juvenile detention center as well as the jail. The current price we're paying for juvenile is $2, so it equates to, I'm not sure what the percentage increase, but the new price is $2.07. And for the adult meals, we were at a fixed price of $1.96. And we're going to a sliding scale. Our current population would have that price at $2.164. So that's going to vary. We'll update weekly based on our population.
Okay, and currently we're at where?
For the adult incarcerated, $1.96.
$1.96. And at our current population, it would be
2.164. We've been fluctuating between 150 and about 180. So if we were at 150, that would bring the price to 2.390.
Okay. Where's their break off? Every 25, every 50 or
Looks like about every 10.
about every 10?
Mhm.
Okay. Based on,
Those are listed as 2 different items, the juvenile and
Yeah.
the adult.
yeah, I'm just making myself some notes.
And we do get reimbursed from I think it's federal government for some of the juvenile meals for breakfast and lunch. So we do.
What, on the juvenile aspect of it, is the sliding scale typically the same, or what is it like on the top end and on the low end of where the juveniles are right now?
I didn't bring that with me, but I can have that ready for tomorrow. It's higher for juvenile because of the requirements. We have to follow the school food requirements to get that reimbursement.
When on that sliding scale, is it like a percentage or they just give you the dollar amounts?
Captain Moses negotiated the dollar amounts.
Okay,
They started higher and he was able to bring them down lower. So the percentage obviously changes at
yeah,
at
okay.
each population point, but
I didn't know if it was just a standard way they did it or,
when they
We-
bid on us last time, they bid us, our population was higher. So at the population we were at this price, 1.962. So in going to the sliding scale, food prices have increased pretty significantly.
yeah,
So in the sliding scale, when we go to the lower population, it allows the vendor to still have something of a profit.
okay.
Anything else on the food?
No,
Okay, the second item is a grant with the Department of Ecology. We've had this grant for a very long time in offender services. It is for our work crew. So when we take the crews out to pick up litter on certain streets and highways, we are able to bill the Department of Ecology. This is a 2-year cycle, so it's a max of reimbursement of $91,700 from a Department of Ecology.
For some reason, I thought we couldn't do that anymore. I'm glad we are, but
We are, yes,
good.
we're still doing that, yep.
do they have, you can't force them though, right? I think that's the change, right? You can't force it.
Right now, we're running all out of custody work crew because our in custody population is not, there's no one, not people sentenced on lower level crimes because the lower level crimes are coming and going quickly. And the kind of crimes that are staying in jail are not the kind of crimes we want out wandering. So,
Wandering, yeah.
yeah, so, but our out of custody work crew numbers are significant. So it's people that are out of custody coming to work off fines or at the order of the court.
What was the total amount of that grant again?
91,700.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Building and planning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Adam Trimble, Planning Manager. On your agenda for tomorrow, we do have a public hearing. So we set this hearing a couple weeks ago, and this is a comprehensive plan amendment. In your packets, you have a summary of the proposal, as well as some maps to kind of walk you through the proposed map changes and the area. The packet also includes a staff report and a copy of the legal notice that went out to advertise the hearing. I have heard from one of the property owners. This is the owner of the majority of the properties who's in favor of the change. He wasn't the initiator, but when this came up in its initial public hearing before the Planning Commission, this property owner indicated that they're supportive of the change, but also would like to be included in the change. And so what you have before you is the request that the initiator put forward, as well as the additional properties to kind of make a logical block for this map change. I think recognizing that with the majority of the property owners' interest and support, and the surrounding area has this rural designation, which is a 2-acre minimum lot size. It's not going to be incompatible with the area. So it has the support of Planning Commission. It has staff recommendation. It'll also take one property from a non-conforming status. It's currently less than 5 acres and put it into a conforming status. So it should benefit it legally. In addition to that, it doesn't mean that anything is going to change in the neighborhood. It's more an indicator that the owners feel the area could change in the future. We know with the case of the first request, that property owner does want to do a subdivision. That was why they paid the fee to change the map. But their interest is solely for their family members. They've got a couple kids and would like to be able to make sure they have access to some properties in the future. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be wide scale redevelopment. That's not what this is about. This is about property owners looking at the area, looking at what their neighbors have access to with the 2-acre minimum, and deciding that that would be the best and highest use for their properties going forward. It is near the North Fork of the Toutle area. It's a nice rural area, pretty secluded, but it does have some topographical challenges. So I don't think that we're going to see a ton of new houses in there under any scenario, but the 2-acre minimum, it'll allow some of those properties to make more efficient use of their land and better choices about where they put homes. So I think overall it's a benefit, and it has the support of the Planning Commission and staff recommendation. So we'll do that hearing tomorrow, hear from the public, and then see if we have a vote for approval or not.
So it's just, basically, we're saying, we're gonna change the plan and said, what used to be 5-acre minimum, now is 2-acre minimum.
That's right.
Anything they do past that would still require a plan and go through planning commission again, and they'd look at water availability, all that stuff that becomes part of it.
That's true. None of
Yeah.
that's been decided, and all those requests would have to go through their own reviews.
Right.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions on this. I see I'm catching up on emails, and I see our gentleman, we put a stop work order because he isn't where he once was doing what you asked. He's kind of fallen behind a little bit, or
He's working through his permitting process. The comment period ends tomorrow. So we will compile all the comments that we receive from the different agencies and gather them and get the permits ready to move forward.
so we're just asking him to stop till that process. That seems reasonable.
Stop for the critical areas and the forest practices, but staff went out on site on Thursday onto his property with different agencies. And so we can give you an update on that if you'd like, or we can wait for miscellaneous, whatever you'd like.
Well, we just seem to be, or maybe I'm the only one getting emails. I see a lot of emails in there, so I'm just, and it sounds like I think you're handling it just fine. I thought you handled it fine from the beginning. So I'm just, looks to me like I don't think we're putting any unreasonable request on him.
No, he's following his permitting process. 95% of people get their permits in hand and then do the work. He started his in the 5% category. He came to the table and he's working with our department, trying to get his permitting process in place so he can continue work and build, I believe, a couple homes out in that area. So he is complying with our department right now
And he's staying out of the 2 areas you asked him to
Correct.
stay out of.
entirely.
Yeah, we
Okay.
verified that.
Just more for me, I guess, trying to get caught up a little bit.
Yeah.
I actually fielded a couple of phone calls this weekend on this situation. The landowner is making her rounds on social media and really, putting information out there about it. One of the things that I tried to clarify with the people who called was that we have jurisdiction over what we have jurisdiction over. The Fish and Game and all those other things, we don't have any jurisdiction over that whatsoever. And they're pretty upset about that. They think that we should just be able to go in and stop everything that's going on. But I spent quite a bit of time explaining to them, we can only enforce what we have jurisdiction over. Department of Ecology, Fish and Game, and natural resources, and even the landowner themselves, they need to, if they want to take civil action because he's trespassing or whatever, we don't have any recourse there. And so trying to clarify that and let people know what we can and can't do based on what's going on has also been, I think, part of the challenge with what's taking place. So clarifying what we can and can't do, I think is good for the public to see and understand.
However, in the permitting process, we are the permit provider. And if they're operating without a permit, technically they're in violation of the county code.
And that's why we did the stop work on that.
Okay?
And he has not been working on my visits out there. Bless you. You want us to come back on the other two miscellaneous items? After the rest of the agenda is done?
Oh, since you're there, why don't you go?
Okay, I didn't want to intrude. Last week I brought forward, over a year ago, we had, $150,000 grant available. It was Department of Commerce, and I believe you were one of the commissioners that we got shut down, for applying. They didn't want, because there were going to be strings attached. It was updating the comp plan and the critical areas ordinance. Since then, now we're on cycle number 2. We have $75,000 available. And we have been working diligently, Adam and his crew, with work groups. And now we're going to start doing planning commission meetings as well and combining the groups to try to move the comp plan forward. The $75,000 request would be to update our critical areas ordinance. It has to be updated by the draft by next December of 2026. And we do not have staff on that we have currently that has the best available science available. And so we kind of are at the crossroads where we would love to do it in-house. We don't have the expertise to do it in-house. And so that would be our request today, would be to ask for the Department of Commerce grant for the $75,000 to get a consultant in place and to do the best available science on the critical areas ordinance. I know.
I don't trust DOC's best available science. What they're gonna do is ask us to comply with some GMA stuff. I can tell you that.
There's a lot of
And-
GMA stuff out there.
And I'm gonna fight that tooth and nail. I'll just be upfront with you.
I can speak to that a little bit. I've heard from other jurisdictions as well as some consultants that are working on these updates, the critical areas ordinance updates. What they're explaining to me is that when you have your own ability to hire experts and craft the update the way that you want it for your county, you can push back on the DOE requirements more effectively. So if we're equipped with these funds, what we would seek to do is hire a consultant that will create the Cowlitz County Critical Areas Ordinance Update and the Cowlitz County Best Available Science that's appropriate for our county and our residents. When we have that in hand and the science to back our position, then we will not be just kind of force-fed the requirements from Olympia or the ecology office. We will have our own science argument as far as what the best available science for this county is. And so that's, I hope, one reason that we would want to support this grant request.
So is that because we have a say in working with the partner that we choose to come up with this?
Yes.
Yeah, they would be our scientists. They would be working on our behalf with our input, as opposed to without the funds, it will be, this is the requirement. You must adopt these science terms. You must adopt these definitions. We won't have the expertise to push back because we wouldn't have hired that person to speak for us and make that argument.
So you're telling me the county will have the ability to hire who they want?
It would be our consultant who would go out for an RFP, see who would want to work in Cowlitz County, and then we would go off that list.
Yeah.
And is $75,000 enough for that?
It's a
Or is that just
start.
what the grant is? and-
That's all the grant that is available. The
That's-
rest would
yeah,
be in-house
that's the
work.
maximum we can get at this time. Yeah.
The rest would be staff match.
And what's the deadline for that?
10 more days, 2 weeks. Something like that. Next week, end of next week, beginning of the following week, end of the month. You want to think about it and bring it back? We can bring it back next Monday?
Tracy, I have full confidence that you guys will try to get a person and I think you understand
I do.
what we're looking for, we're gonna have to, I know we're gonna have to fight back. We're gonna have to fight back no matter who does this study for us. So I'm not gonna give you really a hard time on this.
You can, it's fair.
I-
That's why I brought it back with the three
I
of you
just,
there,
you
because
know,
I did
I've
express
sit up
last
there and
week.
I've listened to the Department of Commerce talk, and they talk to these GMA counties and the things the expectations they're having, and I'm going, I'm going like, get away from me, Satan, you know, it's just, it's horrid. And I know they'll push that. If you're telling me we can at least get somebody on our side to help push our agenda, then I'm not gonna give you grief about that.
Okay. If we draft a letter, at least that we have support from our commissioners to at least apply for the grant, or would we be able to do that? And get board signature? Because I think we would have to do that.
Yeah, it's required.
So you said the deadline to apply for it is next week?
I believe it's the end of next week or beginning of the following week.
And then the
It's-
deadline to have this program written up is December?
Oh, December of next year,
Of
not
next
this
year.
December. We have a year
Okay.
year and 4 months to get it done
So the deadline is just the application.
for the grant. Yes,
Yeah.
It's no guarantee you'll
correct.
get it. You're
Get it
just
anyway.
asking
Correct.
us if it's okay to apply for it.
Yes.
Right.
And
Okay.
I think I'm seeing we're all okay.
Okay.
Great.
I have another follow-up on one of our other grants when I believe you were in the audience and then our commissioner.
Yeah, Department of Ecology.
Yes.
I spoke against that one, actually. But I was on
Yes.
that side.
So yes, you were. We've been working with Shauna, who's been the representative that's coming in and workshopping with our board quarterly, I believe. She's been coming in and meeting with you. And she has been helping and showing Adam different jurisdictions that took out Chapter 10, which was climate change. It's our flood hazard mitigation plan. And we need that in place. It's kind of a plan that the county has. The last one was done in 1988. But us not having that plan in place will eventually hinder Public Works from getting grants if we have flooding events down the road. And so she gave us an example of Yakima County that took out the climate change element chapter and got it passed by ecology. And so they were able to adopt it based on that. And so she did find that for us. So we do still have that on the shelf that we do need to get adopted at some point. We did get the $235,000 grant 2 years ago. But that is something that eventually we'd like to maybe bring forward and see if we can get, if we took the Chapter 10 climate change element out, if this board would be inclined to adopt the version.
Is this in case there is a
Catastrophic flood.
natural event? Yeah. We would be excluded from FEMA funding if we don't have this in place?
Without an updated plan, you're not going to be able to apply for new projects that would be supported by FEMA flood planning. So we're basically without the tool or the key to unlock those funds. And then, yeah, we have a very stale plan on the shelf. It doesn't really reflect the current situation with the cities, the diking districts, the flood control districts that are here. It doesn't talk about them. It doesn't talk about the coordination that's needed between them. It doesn't talk about the emergency management that we put in place since the 80s. So we really need an updated plan. It also benefits community partners that are working on projects that do flood reduction.
Yeah. Here, I'll make the same comment I made back then. Our people aren't for sale. Putting restriction on the people of this county on their property just so we can get grant money, they're not for sale, and I'm not gonna sell them. So if you can get some of those out of there, what I look for in any of these plans is no new restrictions. That's always my goal. Or some, in fact, I'd rather see it go the other way, that they actually have more rights, but I'm not gonna tie more strings to them just so we can get, me personally, I'm not gonna tie strings to them just so we can get money. I'm not selling them that way. But if you think we can work some of those objectionable areas out of there, I'm not opposed to relooking at it. I'll just say it again, I'm not gonna sell the people of this county so we can get money.
I agree. And so my thought was, is maybe next time Shauna meets with you, the board, that maybe we could be part of that discussion and as an agenda item and just kind of hear her thoughts of what she's kind of up against and what she is seeing, and then maybe how she can help us move this plan forward that
That might
doesn't
be a
give
good
us
discussion,
restrictions.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. And the only other thing I have is the BPAC. I know you got a development community, or somebody representing the development community that to replace Nick Massey. And so we would recommend that
Is that the gentleman that
appointment.
used to work for us?
Yep. Yep. So it'd be a Chilton representative. So, and they're doing a lot of development here. It makes sense, but that would be a recommendation we would support. That's all I have. Thanks for the morning. Sorry.
Gina.
Good morning, Gina James, Health and Human Services. We have 2 items scheduled for the agenda tomorrow. The first is an amendment to our contract with the Department of Health. The amendment is adding funding for Group B water systems, right about $20,000. That funding supports our work with Group B systems, providing technical assistance. There's annual applications that we review and supports some water testing for those systems. So it's not new funding, it's just the allocation for the fiscal year. And then the second item we have is a contract with the Department of Ecology. This isn't a new contract to us, it's just an award for this fiscal year. This supports our work in responding to solid waste complaints in the community. So if there's buildup of garbage, vehicles that are leaking, things like that for those solid waste complaints that come into our environmental health unit, this supports some of that work to respond to those complaints and help property owners, pick things up. So it's not creating a public health hazard.
How much did you say that one was?
That one is a little over 187,000. And that is a 2-year contract.
That one's a 2-year.
Yeah.
Is it like a reimbursement one, like most of them? We do the work and we send it and they help us out?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually fielded 2 phone calls with regards to both of these things this weekend.
Oh, you did?
Yes, one of them is, I got a phone call from a citizen up at the top of China Garden who was concerned about her well. A couple of years ago, there were 5 new wells that were put in and she lost a lot of water pressure. And I guess she said there's a development now that we're looking at putting in 33 wells up there. So
Wow.
she's really concerned about their water up there. I didn't have a chance to talk to her at great length about it. So I think it's great that you're
Okay.
here. How do we go about that situation like that where there's a development going in with 33 wells? How do we monitor that?
So as part of the permitting process, they includes water availability. So that piece will be looked at. If there's not adequate water, then that might hinder what options there are for new development. I can get some more details. That's about as far as my technical knowledge goes with what that looks like in terms of if it doesn't look like there's going to be enough water, then what do we do? So yeah, I can get more information and see if we have any information on the development so far.
Okay. And the other one is on the solid waste. I
Mhm.
received an email, 2 emails, one of them talking about there's a place over by Catlin Elementary where there is apparently a pile of solid waste that is about ready to fall over into the road. And they were wanting to know if that's Kelso or if that's us. And it's right in that
Mm.
area, kind of by the railroad tracks, you know, where, is it BNSF that has that, or is it Forest? We
There-
talked about that spot before.
Yeah, there's a part there that DNR actually
Has.
owns, and I can't succinctly tell you where that stops and ends, yeah.
So I think
Okay.
I think it's in that area.
Okay.
But the other thing was, apparently, not apparently, they did, Kelso, passed an ordinance with regards to solid waste on city property. And I got asked if we were going to, pass some sort of ordinance, with regards to solid waste, and I said that I would research it. I can't imagine that we don't have something that already says you can't store your solid waste on county property, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
So, but in
But
a
we're-
situation like that, what do we do? When do we just call the sheriff's department and they go out and assess it, or who does that?
Yeah, it depends on where it's at, and who has jurisdiction over that. So we would certainly work with whoever has jurisdiction and make it sure it gets to the right location and then let the appropriate agency respond for that. So I'd be curious to know kind of exactly where that's
Mhm.
at, and we could figure out who would be best to respond.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's an issue of like needing more garbage pickup, like more frequent garbage pickup, or if people are just illegally dumping, or if it's someone's property, it kind of depends on where it's at and what's happening.
Do either one of you guys know why they adopted that ordinance, or did they not have one before to say that you
Kelso,
can't put your
yeah,
stuff?
I
on-
don't know the history behind it. Is that our abatement person when we have stuff like that? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Was this isn't out of Barnes Drive you're talking about? Barnes Drive in North Pacific.
It may be, I don't remember the address. in the
I
email.
got cornered over at the Highland, Tamashano Park, by Kelso City Council person that said, yeah, it's literally on the other side of the street from Kelso city limits.
Mhm.
Mm.
And the stuff, and I drove out there and looked at it, it's stacked up right short of the edge of the road.
That's the same.
And the
place.
concern is that in order to pull out to get on the road, it's a blind spot.
Mm.
I know Longview has a ordinance, basically if your driveway comes in on the side of your property, from that inside corner to the outside corner has to be low enough that when you're backing out of your driveway or you're pulling out, have to be able to see what's on the road so that you're not pulling out in front of somebody. Basically, Kelso just did the same thing, I guess, and now they're asking us to do something similar because that he's also got a whole bunch of homeless people out there and they're accumulating all this stuff on his property. He's got a big for sale sign out there that says make offer. And there's, one man's junk is another man's treasure, I guess. But there's a hellacious amount of stuff piled up out there.
Hmm.
But I do want to go back to the question about somebody putting in another well and me losing
Water. yeah.
water pressure. I can lose water flow, but the pressure is determined by my pump.
Her verbiage was that she lost water. She didn't have any more water. And I'm not sure how do you get it back? I don't know. But
You just have to drive the wellhead deeper, but to get back into the water, if the water table's going down, you start sucking air.
Mhm.
So I guess somebody'd have to investigate that. And I don't know.
I'm gonna have a conversation with her today. I'm gonna
Yeah.
call her back.
Okay. Yeah, I can take a look too and see. I don't know how far the new development is in the process, if they've hit that point of looking at water specifically.
Basically, do you know about that development? Do you know which one?
Well, there's a big one in the city right now going on. They're just punching in the roads, but
She said at the top of China Garden.
yeah, you can't.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't,
That would be a different type system.
Group A, yeah.
I'll get more details today, but
Mhm.
And I'll take a look at what Kelso passed in regards to the solid waste ordinance too, just to see what it looks like compared to what we have in place. So.
Yeah.
just to
Thank you.
see. Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Facilities. Is that you, Sean?
Good morning, Commissioner Sean Rowe, Public Works, here for the Facilities Department today. We have a motion item for contract and award and execution with Lakeside Industries for the building, admin building parking lot replacement. There's a total of $205,957.53. I passed out a map earlier.
This is it right now?
Yeah, I passed out a map kind of detailing the area. It's the admin parking lot, the WSU building parking lot, and as well, we're facilitating for the city of Kelso, Third Avenue as well. The lane in full closest to us and about half of the far lane as well. So it'll help with all the parking issues we have in this lower corner here. We received 3 bids on it. It was pretty tight between the first, the one we were awarding to Lakeside, and the second bidder, about $513.
Wow.
Yeah, so looks like we had some pretty tight numbers there. There's a little bit of some striping change, adding a few more handicap spots up top to help a clientele out. So just, that's just contract award and execution tomorrow.
so we added handicap spots.
We have on this current drawing here, yes.
How many bidders did you say you had? 3?
We had 3 total. They ranged on the high side of 339,000, and then the low one was 205,957.53. The second was 206,471. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, I'm assuming you're Public Works.
Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. Public Works has 3 items this week, 2 on the consent agenda, both centered around easements. One is granting an easement to the PUD on a piece of property that we own. We purchased this property in the 80s for a slide repair project. And included in that purchase was an access, an ingress and egress easement for the adjoining parcel. And this easement granting to the PUD is to allow them to run a service line through that existing ingress and egress to serve the parcel to the north, so that they can build a single-family home. So that's the first item. The second item is a release of an easement. We talked about this one a few weeks ago, on July 1st. There was an easement granted to the county off of Belmont Loop for water service to these 2 parcels. By mistake, it should have been granted to the city of Woodland. So this is just releasing the interest in those easements so that they will be appropriately marked to the city of Woodland. So those are our straightforward easements. The third item that we're bringing forward is a hearing for proposed ordinance amending chapter 11.04 of the traffic code. So we have the second of the 3 public hearings. So we're running this in conjunction with the sheriff's office. As our code currently stands,
there was not an establishment of the procedure for erecting the signs, which Public Works has been doing anyway, so we're adding that in. In addition, since the original date of code adoption, the state court system amended the infraction rules for courts of limited jurisdiction, now directs the local jurisdiction individually to establish the fines and penalties for parking violations. So the code will be amended to add the specific language that Public Works is to erect the signs in the areas and establishes fines for parking illegally, $50 for the first violation, $100 for the second, and $200 for the third and all subsequent violations. So we are running that through to get it established. We have several locations where we get frequent complaints with people parking illegally, and the sheriff's had difficulty ticketing and getting these infractions in place. So this was coming forward out of those needs.
I think it's pretty straightforward. The state used to define the fines and all that. Now they're saying you guys define the fines for your own
Yes.
jurisdiction. So that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Kathy. I'm assuming that's this sheet you gave us. Yeah, okay.
Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. So this is our third quarter budget amendment. This will be an agenda item for tomorrow. It's a public hearing. And so we have a few items. We typically use our third quarter to look at many of our revenue items and adjust our revenue items. But in addition to that, we look at expenses as well. We'll start off with the general fund. We have a few. We have for our commissioner's office, we have a $20,000 increase. This is an unexpected item that was from an additional expense related to contract review, some outside legal services. And so this is a $20,000 increase. On facilities, this was an item that wasn't anticipated when we did the budget as well. This is the purchase of Riverside Office building for the Office of Public Defender's Office. And this is $905,000, which I believe that settlement is, the real estate settlement's happening this week on that.
So expect third floor to close this week and first floor to close next week.
So this is to set aside the appropriate amount of funding for that settlement to purchase those 2 units. Juvenile, there was a request to approve some ARPA funding earlier in the year. And this is to amend their expenditure budget to account for all of that ARPA funding. I believe it was for some purchase of some washers and dryers that they needed. And then Office of Public Defender, we have an increase of, well, actually a decrease in their rent. So once we purchase those units, we will no longer have the rent for the remainder of the year. So we're decreasing that line item by $34,700. But we will have to continue to pay, we will have to pay the Owners Association fees, so HOA fees. And we anticipate that to be about $800 a unit for the next 4 months. Oh, there's 4 units, but it's also 4 months. The WSU Extension Program, they have a part-time employee, and it's been determined that they've been in place, and so they have a step progression. So that's $800 increase to their personal expense. On non-departmental, we have a few items here where we're correcting some transfers out. We specifically are needing to request a transfer out to the cafe. We're still need to supplement the cafe at this point, and that's for $10,000. We are also decreasing a transfer out because the public facility district, we had in error included their debt in this line, in non-departmental. That's $487,800. You'll see another entry on the revenue side. It's pretty much a wash. And then we have some additional, what's happened this year is we had 2 retirements happening, I think at June 30th in the Sheriff's Department. And we did not anticipate such large vacation and sick leave payouts for those. And so we're asking for some additional funding to help us through the end of the year, about $60,000 to cover vacation payouts. And the non-departmental fund funds all of the general fund vacation payouts during the year.
Do we not? Is it this on here just because it's an expense we didn't expect this year?
Yes.
We do accrue it, so it's sitting somewhere. I mean, we always did it where I came from, there was a line item that accrued.
Yeah, there's
so
a
you knew what your
there's-
liability was?
Yeah, there's a financial entry that's on the balance sheet for.
Okay, so we know
that.
what our liability is. We just
Yeah.
weren't expecting to do this year.
Right, right.
Okay.
We weren't expecting the expenditure to hit in this 2025, but, so we had two major payouts, and so we're just anticipating what we need for the remainder of the year for general retirements or terminations. So either way, it's a retirement or a termination. We have payouts
Yeah.
associated.
And Kathy, did you guys talk about ways to mitigate that so that it's not such a huge hit when it does happen, on how we structure those? Was that this particular thing, or was it something else?
We talked about it in the budget retreat, talking about, just helping us to have a better flow for some of this. That has to do with more related to the bonus time that's actually posted to an employee on their anniversary date. So that was something, no, it's not
Okay,
this.
okay.
And these are part of your collective bargaining agreements and part of your employee handbook, your policy on. Then the next section, the good news is we have quite a bit of revenue corrections to make for estimates that were made at the beginning of the year for the general fund. And so we have several on here. And this is looking at what's actually been brought in. And so we had some additional revenue related to real and personal property tax. And we had some interest also associated with that. And so those are a little over $1.2 million increases to the budget, revenue budget. So let me look at some other larger ones. We also did not anticipate some of the attorney salary reimbursements. And so that was $114,000 that's being brought in. And so we just went through every single general fund, and the rest of them were, some of them are small. And we had Superior Court, we had budgeted no revenue in this particular line item, was $54,000, has already been brought in. So we decided we'd go ahead and recognize that in the budget as well. And fee registry services, $43,000. Then we got some smaller ones for different ones, different departments. BECCA grant. I think we talked about that when we talked about the clerk's office financials. And so several of these, and then we have public defense is receiving some funding that they had not budgeted, which is 179,000 so far this year. And we actually also anticipated what was for the remainder of the year in some of these. And then we reduced revenue for that one for the PFD that I was saying. We had thought they were going to pay us, but they're paying their debt straight out of their own fund. And then a little bit of that ARPA funding that's coming in for juvenile. So that was a total of about $1.5 million in increased revenues. And so as a result, we're increasing our ending fund balance by 986,000, even though we had, a fairly large expenditure for purchase of Riverside building. So we're still to the positive on this budget amendment for the general fund. Then moving on to some other funds, we have our road fund. And our road fund, we are actually reducing our revenue for Federal Highway Administration about $3.8 million. And then we are reducing some of our expenditures on road funds. We are reducing our capital construction expense by 8.6 million, and also some traffic control and some other machinery equipment to the tune of about 1.2. And so that's actually increasing our ending fund balance by 5.9 million.
Is that because we're not going to get these projects done this year, and are we just going to roll that over into next year?
Yeah. I think that when they presented their financials, the last time they were talking about the projects that would not take place and they're going to be moved over to the next year.
Yeah, so it's gonna be Dyke Roads, parts of Cloverdale, things of that nature. And then as well, we originally budgeted for that striping machine and supplies to go with it. And so we've removed those as well.
Okay. Noxious weed had a very small adjustment, and it was related to auditor services, and they just reduced their fund balance. We had rural county facilities. This is increasing our disbursements, and this is a result of the projects that you had approved for the parks, as well as for some additional funding for Scott Hill Park. And that just reduces the ending fund balance. On the federal forest Title III funds, we are decreasing. This reduced the revenue because we're not receiving any revenue this year. And then we went ahead and did corresponding adjustment for the expense line item. Superior Court Law Library, they had a small adjustment in this. Some of these are related to the auditor's services were increased on what's being billed out. And so we're just making those adjustments. Veterans relief revenue. This is because we didn't budget anything as a transfer in, but we're having to do this because this was an entry from second quarter, and we're just making the adjustment to catch up on that. And then veterans relief expense, they are also requesting to remove some of their budget for special projects because those won't be taking place. And so they're offsetting it by putting those funds into their other line item. And then we had a little amazing, but we had a little additional revenues that came in from mental health. And this is due to some of the tax filers that file on an annual basis. And so we received $6,500 additional mental health revenue, which relates to the prior year, really. And then our victim witness revenue we went through there and looked at it. And so we had some revenues that need to be increased and some that needed to be decreased. So we did that. And we also adjusted their ending fund balance by 19,000 for those.
Kathy, can we go back to the Veterans Relief Fund?
Yes.
So we amended their budget to give them $38,000 more. And they went from 899 to 937. What was that? What did you say that was for again?
What happened is we had an operating transfer in on Veterans Relief Fund. This relates to their last year's billing for administrative cost. They billed it in the first quarter. And so we just wanted to show that transfer in, and that increased their total revenues coming
It
in.
wasn't like that they hired somebody and we
No.
gave them more money for that. Okay.
No,
I was just wondering because it just says operating transfer, so.
yeah, and that was from the general fund. And we will no longer be doing that because if they have any administrative expenses, they'll pay it off of interest because they're earning interest income off of that fund. Okay, on to Sheriff's Crime Reduction Task Force. This has its own fund. They had an increase in auditors' services, and so they reduced their fund balance for that. We have our low-income housing expense fund, which is 18401. And this is, they've made some adjustments in the amount of personnel that are billed to their different funds. And this is increasing some of their personnel expenditures charged to this account. And then they reduced their professional services contract by this corresponding amount. That was 100,204. Law and Justice, we had one major amendment to this fund. We are transferring out $2 million. This is to help with the Hall of Justice project. So this is a source of funds that is available and can be utilized for law and justice type programs. And so we're using it for the facility improvements at the Hall of Justice, that electrical and HVAC project. And you'll see that in a minute when we talk about CIP.
And next Monday is the kickoff date, huh? The
Right.
18th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you nervous?
What, are you on vacation next week?
Savannah did come back to work, didn't she?
On the opioid revenue, we are amending this revenue up. We received, when we started out the budget for the year, I believe they had only budgeted for the receipt of the distributor agreement. And so we have several other agreements that came in this month. And so we're adjusting that up to 479,000. It doesn't include the Purdue settlement because we don't know what the amount is yet.
Did you see, did you see that? I didn't know if you got a copy of that.
I did not get a
okay,
copy of that.
I-
And I've been emailing them, asking them, where is our agreement? Because online, if you wanted to do a manual signature, you could print off all the forms and all
Yeah.
the contracts and sign them. But I really wanted to do the electronic version. And so they're doing it via DocuSign instead of doing it before. They've done it different ways.
Yeah.
It's like, kind of interesting. But so they have now, there's having it sent to you as DocuSign. But before they allowed us to sign it right in the online in their
In
website.
the portal.
In their portal. So now they're doing DocuSign.
So do you think that's gonna come to me? Cause I'm
Yes,
the one on that, so.
yes.
You just have to let me know when I expect to see that. I get a lot of DocuSign to
Yeah,
sign
but-
stuff and I'm trying to figure out.
So if you can, tried to click on it and it told me that it was expired. So if you could click on it and see if it's expired, let me know.
Well, it's possible because it
Yeah.
sits in there for a bit. Okay.
Yeah, and I've been trying to get them to tell me where is our document. So if all else fails and we can't get something signed electronically, I do have the documents that we could physically sign as well. So I'll make sure that we get that before the September 18th, which is the deadline.
Deadline for it. All right.
So on the opioid, we just placed those funds basically into the remaining fund balance, ending fund balance. We didn't budget those or anything, but to stay in balance, we included additional expense there. Budget stabilization fund, well, we forgot to budget for the investment income on that. So we're placing a budget here now of 150,000 for those funds. We have a little over $2 million in our budget stabilization fund. And we're just budgeting that to go straight to fund balance. So that would increase our fund balance for that fund to, like I said, we're actually at 3.4 million.
What is that fund used for?
This is a fund that's an emergency fund. It's counted as part of our general fund reserve. But it's a fund specifically there for emergency, and it requires all three commissioners to approve any use of those funds. Has to be unanimous consent. K9, there was just a little expense, auditor's office, ARPA expense. This again is showing the ARPA that was approved for the equipment at the juvenile. And then CIP expense, this is where we have our Hall of Justice projects. We are increasing the transfers in, which comes from the Law and Justice Fund of $2 million. And then we are increasing the CIP expense for that actual project for Hall of Justice by the $2 million. And then additionally, because y'all have approved the total project expenditures for this year, they're anticipating that to be about, in total, 6.5 million this year. And so we're increasing the expenditure line to accommodate that, have budget capacity, and that will decrease the fund balance by 1.5 million. Remaining expenditures related to the Hall Justice project are anticipated to be next year in the amount of about 4 million, 4.5. And those will come back in next year's budget and have that in the next year's budget. Sheriff's Range, they're needing some additional repairs at the range, and so they're reducing fund balance by $10,000. The next one is showing that we're needing some additional support for the cafe to complete our transition period to the tune of $10,000. And then for the IT reserve, Travis is requesting $708,000 to be added to the computer hardware software line. These are for some different long-term replacements that we've been budgeting money for, setting aside money all along to take care of things like servers and switches and things like that. So these are expenses that he didn't anticipate at the beginning of the year, but they're looking to take care of some of this in 2025. Risk management had a little additional expense for auditor services, so they're reducing fund balance by $1,375. Same thing for election reserve. They're increasing auditor's expense is $634. Law enforcement records, same thing, auditor's expense $80. And then the remaining items on the list for this is from the PFD. They had a resolution and they made some corrections and some transfers between several of their funds for the projects they have going on. And so these are to get those into the budget. And that's it for our budget amendments.
Well, I appreciate the good news on increase in revenues coming in.
Mhm. Yep,
That's a little bit of a bright spot, which
Yeah.
is nice.
that's it.
Where are we at for being able to manage drug court expenses when they run out at the end of the year?
Well, we've been just in discussions with drug court and we've been actually, all departments that are funded with mental health tax were alerted that those funds are no longer available after 2025 and to start working on plans of how to replace those funds or what they're going to do. So I anticipate, and drug court's been working on their plans and looking at different options. And so they're all told that when they come for their departmental workshops for the budget, they need to explain fully what's going on with their department.
Okay.
So those will start September, as early as September 16th. We're going to have a workshop and one of them is specifically on the mental health tax and how it's going to be utilized in 2026, what's remaining in 2026 and 2027.
Yeah, we've had several conversations with regards to trying to figure out alternative sources of funding for drug court if if we decide that that's something that we are going to continue. So Dallas and Gina and Kathy have worked hard to come up with ways to do that. Obviously, they're still working on it, but at the workshop, I think it'll be presented to us to see if it's something that we can do. The other thing there is that with Emerald City and what they're looking at that hospital at the end of Broadway. That is one of the things that they're wanting to include in the wraparound services is drug court and make it to where they can bill for that as opposed to having it be relied on being funded through taxes or through other sources.
So they can build the state,
Yes.
build Medicare.
And the way that works is with the wraparound service, if they make drug court part of the mandatory rehab for somebody who has substance abuse issues that's in there, they can make it mandatory as part of the rehab process, then they can go ahead and bill for it.
Okay. That'll be interesting discussion.
Yeah, and we just started those conversations last week with them. They asked about drug court and how we're handling it, and I told them what our situation was, and they felt, given obviously that everything moves forward the way that they anticipate, I mean, we're just talking right now, but they felt that drug court would be something that they could wrap into that. So we'll see how that goes.
It'll be an interesting conversation.
Well, obviously, that's not going to happen in the near future. So there's going
No.
to be a gap in between when the funds run out and before that type of
Correct.
system is in place.
Yeah, and that's what Kathy and Gina and Dallas have been working on is trying to find bridge funding in the short term.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay. One other thing I saw before we get off agenda, and I think it's good to talk about this. I heard Mr. John Keatley came in and talked to you guys last Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had called me and I went out and visited with him actually before I left for Idaho. very knowledgeable man. The way I explain Mr. Keatley is his years in forestry, he's probably forgotten more than any of these new guys know. So anytime he tells me something, I take it and I pretty much bank it. And this is a disturbing thing. We touched on it briefly that Forest Service Practice Board was looking at this and now they're actually wanting to do it, which takes a lot from us. So I'm glad we're having a discussion on that during the public meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, he made a comment that I thought was very interesting when he said that there's no scientific evidence that shows that would cool the, the river. And I went and watched some YouTube videos on it. And granted, they're YouTube videos, but there was nothing that showed that what they're saying would actually happen. It's almost against the laws of nature, the way that things work, what they're saying is going to take place. Yeah.
To me, it seems pretty simple. It's just a taking of land, of property. And it's, anyway. My only comment is I'm glad to see it's on for discussion tomorrow. Okay. Ms. Jessica, are you okay to go a little early? Okay.
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I have a few requests to fill. The first one comes from Public Works. They're requesting to fill their GIS specialist. The employee put in her resignation effective August 21st.
Okay.
Good. Okay. And then the next item comes from Corrections. They currently have a work crew officer position open, and one of their sergeants at the jail is interested in moving over to work crew. So they're requesting to fill that work crew position with their sergeant at top step of the work crew step, because it'll be a significant pay decrease for him. Current base salary for a sergeant is $7,068 a month, and the top step for work crew is $5,286 a month. So he is interested in moving to work crew, but it will be quite the pay decrease.
And he understands this?
Yes.
How long has this position been open?
I'm not positive.
End of May. We had a worker officer that
Just a
retired.
couple
We posted for it and have been processing applicants, and the sergeant just expressed his interest in transferring over there. He's 62. He's been with the department a long time and wants a less stressful role as he continues to work. It'll make it much easier just as far as training and all of that for the county.
So if he moves, that creates another vacancy?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's the second part of the request, is to fill his position as a sergeant.
That's an
So,
internal posting.
I gotta think about this. There was a comment I was privy to that there's Wacaikum's having problems and looking to, want to know if we have openings, either A, in the sheriff's office and B, in corrections, I believe.
I spoke with their sheriff. We're processing an applicant that is currently a corrections officer at Wahkiakum County. So that would be a lateral as a corrections officer. So I've been in contact with the sheriff as well as that applicant because it sounds like they're doing some layoffs in Wahkiakum.
Is that a straightforward thing? What do we got to do to help that along?
We have to do a full background because of state law is for how hiring goes for corrections and law enforcement. So polygraph, psychological evaluation, full background, but we're in the process of that. It makes it much easier when you onboard because that employee is already certified. We don't have to send them to the academy. And typically the training time is going to be shorter as well because they are already experienced.
Okay.
And you said the gentleman that wants to work crew 62?
That's correct.
And has he given you any indication as to how long he's gonna be around?
I think he wants to go to 65.
Okay.
All makes sense to me. Okay.
Thank you.
I can't blame
Yeah.
you there.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
And so you're good with him starting at the work crew top step at 5286 a month, as well as filling the sergeant position and the domino that that creates, because that will be an internal hire likely.
Yeah.
So we're starting him at that step. Is he topped out then? Or does he have some mobility?
Yeah, I mean, he'll be topped out outside of cost of living increases
Okay.
and whatnot. But he understands that.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what my next question is. He's aware that that's how, okay.
And then I have a few executive sessions, one under performance of a public employee and then collective bargaining.
Okay. Time frame
Let's start with 20.
for both?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go into executive session, performance of a public employee and collective bargaining. We're estimating 20 minutes. Okay.
The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes until 11:03. The board is extending the executive session an additional 10 minutes until 11:13 a.m. The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes until 11:18 a.m. The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes until 11:23. The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes until 11:28 a.m. The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes until 11:33 a.m.
Okay, we're back from executive session. No decisions rendered. I think unless there's some. What, did we cover this justice, public safety leadership?
Oh, that was, that's our monthly meeting. What we're doing is we're currently going over the hiring process, job postings, interviewing, and employee retention stuff, which the timing was actually really good. The risk pool talked about making sure that our hiring processes are, that we actually spend more time on the front end bringing people on so that we save some headache on the back end. There's a couple of counties that actually, one of them, I believe, hired a felon. And the other one had an issue with somebody who had some harassment charges against them that were pending. And now they're having a very difficult time trying to get rid of them.
You know, it can be so difficult because they make it so hard for, you're limited, if somebody calls you for referral, they make it so hard for you to tell.
Exactly. To tell the truth?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So it's been good. We've been going over that process and how we can better do some onboarding stuff and interviewing and that kind of thing to make sure that we're getting the best candidates and not just settling for somebody because the work pool is shallow and make the mistake of just filling a position because we need a body in there. So it's been good meetings.
Well, obviously you got to do a background search because resumes are not always the whole truth.
Oh, no, yeah.
I think I've even heard of some pieces that look at their social media.
Yeah.
Accounts as part of
Absolutely.
research.
Yeah. Yeah, and on one of those, they said if you would have just pulled up the guy's Facebook page.
You would have known?
Known that, yeah, we're not bringing that guy in. Yeah. type of thing. So it's been good. We started that because I had a couple of department heads and two electeds to want to talk about that process. They're not having issues with it, but they want to do better at it. So it's been good.
Okay. Yeah, I learned long ago, just because you need a body doesn't mean you need anybody.
Yeah. Don't settle for it.
Right. Yeah. All right. That gentleman never came back. I'm not sure what he wanted, but
It was, he stated that he lived in an area where he's got a Kelso address in the county and has a Longview City School District is what it was? Yeah, Longview School District. And has issues with the roads. He wants somebody to address the road situation where he's at, but that was all he told us.
oh, okay. Well, maybe he'll be back. All right. We will adjourn. Thank you.